Hey, how's it going out there, folks? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to a few out there. It is the Earthmaster on this Friday, October 31st, 2025. Happy Halloween. Taking a look here at the latest map from California. I guess some movement down south here towards the southern end of the San Andreas Fault. Also a 2.9 earthquake coming in towards the Diablo range. That's just off the San Andreas Fault. Looks like it got bumped up a little bit. That was I think a 2.8 here on the globe. It's still a 2.8 on the globe, so this must be picking off the EMSC data. But regardless, a little earthquake activity stirring up there across California. Let's see if that got picked up on any of the seismograph stations. It doesn't look like it. Should have the Parkfield station up here working, but yeah, it didn't even pick that earthquake up. 11:27, so just about 10 minutes or so ago. 12 miles deep underneath this area. A little bit of activity along the western side of the San Joaquin Valley recently. That's a stress area, obviously branching off the San Andreas Fault as far as pressure goes. We're noticing this gap right here, seismic gap that leads down to the southern branch of the San Andreas Fault. This is a Parkfield section. Periodically we get a couple earthquakes into it, but it's coming up here in a time frame where we should see a 6.0, at least a 6-pointer on this Parkfield section of the San Andreas Fault, because it's got these regular reoccurrence intervals that happen every 20 to 22 years, and we're sitting at 21 years since the last 6-pointer. So that should tell you something right there. Also, concerning aspect of the next 6-pointer, a lot of scientists, geologists, believe that that could trigger the San Andreas Fault, the next 6-pointer here at the Parkfield section, because of the amount of time that has passed that has allowed plenty of strain out here to accumulate along the San Andreas Fault, the southern end. And of course, it all could go as well with the Cascadia. You know, that's like the worst case scenario. And it is a lot of doom and gloom, not fear mongering. That is just the facts that it can happen. Fear mongering would say, yeah, we could see a whole rupture from Alaska all the way down to South America. You know, that's fear mongering. But this is being realistic because they know it's happened. They've found evidence of it being linked together. So that is not fear mongering. That's just the cold hard facts a lot of people don't want to chew. All right, Southern California. We got, as I mentioned there, a couple earthquakes in the last hour. Just focus mainly here off the San Andreas Fault. A couple on Pacific side and one over here on the North American side of the plate boundary. Nothing above 2.5 aside from that earthquake right now near the San Andreas Fault up here, Diablo range. Bay Area pretty quiet. Northern California, handful of earthquakes up here. Looks like a couple this morning, some from yesterday as well. Nothing big happening there across Northern California for now. Same for Washington up here. We'll give a quick glance at the seismograph stations up there in Mount Rainier, or at Mount Rainier and Mount St. Helens. See if we got any unreported earthquake activity going on up there, because it's been happening. It definitely has been happening. A handful of smaller quakes out there in the very small microquake range, as you can see on the graph here. Nothing big, no escalation. That's at Mount Rainier, at Mount St. Helens, which has been having, you know, its own earthquake swarm there. Take a look at this data real quick, and it looks pretty quiet. Maybe one here. This may be a local one. Some of these may be events away from the area, but I don't see any uptick going on here across Mount St. Helens for now. Yellowstone National Park. I'm starting to think there's actually a decent swarm going on up here, just because of the magnitudes that have been showing up on the USGS map. I normally like to investigate the data myself, far as, you know, reviewing that recorded digital seismograph data. And I'll show you here in a second why it's almost impossible to see if this is indeed a big earthquake swarm or not. We do have 63 earthquakes, but remember, in swarms in the past, they've only reported at the most half of them. So this number could be very well, you know, up above 100. But still, that's a lot of earthquake activity, with the largest event being a 3.7 here across the Mammoth area. Now, there is some inflation going on here across this area. I'll show you guys real quick. in case you didn't catch my update here a couple nights ago when we were talking about this. Up around the Madison area, there's this chart right here, which shows eastward movement, northward movement, and vertical displacement up. This is what is rising since about 2022 or so. By about, looks like we're approaching 40 mm now in the last 4 years. So there is some inflation going on there, specifically across this area of Yellowstone National Park. And now we're getting a swarm there. How big of a swarm? Well, you know, I wish I could tell you. Normally I have the data to look at. This is from the 24th. All their data is offline, and it's hard to believe that, you know, these aren't just automatic stations that, you know, show the data out there. This is from the 24th. So we have no clue what's going on there as far as any raw data when it comes to the earthquake swarm. Yes, we can go over to a different site, such as the University of Utah, or this site called isthisthingon.org. It's normally an awesome station that I've used for many, many years. I'll take you back here to 2016 and just show you what the reports used to look like. No big swarm going on this one here, but as you can see, the seismograph stations there, they're amplified in terms of the amplitudes. I want to find something that's got some decent quake activity on it to show you guys. There's one here. This is just an example. Looks like there was a little earthquake around the Maple Creek area. That showed up across the majority of the seismograph stations here in this area. And you can also see wind. You can see large distant events. You know, say for example, if this was a 5-pointer or maybe a 5-pointer up in Canada or in Mexico, it would show up like that. Even a 6s and 7s would show up like that as well, but or stronger. But what we have now is a bunch of seismograph stations that are so flat. You know, these are supposedly the earthquakes this morning. Let me go over here and show you guys. And like I said, I don't even think they're reporting all of them. There was one at 5:03. Okay, 5:03 in the morning for a 0.4. 5:03 in the morning would be probably right about here. Okay, see that? If that's what we're using, unless they're switching this over to mountain time, then it wouldn't even be visible. Then it would be somewhere around here, which is not even visible. So I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt that maybe this is that little earthquake they're reporting. The next larger one is a 1.2 at 3:50 in the morning. If we go over here to 3:50 in the morning, well, you know, I don't see anything in the 3 o'clock hour. If you go to 4:50 in the morning, that's not even in there either. This one right here is in 5 o'clock in the morning, and this is mountain time. This is not central or eastern time. So technically, if the hour difference was accounted for, it'd only be 1 hour later. So how are they counting a 1.2 at 3:50 in the morning, right around this seismograph station that I have pulled up here around Maple Creek, 3:50 in the morning, or 4:50 in the morning? It's not visible. So if those are in the low 1 range, what are these that are actually showing up as much more prominent here on the graph? These could be easily in the lower 2 range, or maybe even higher than that, because some of those seismograph stations did show up, and those are the ones they're just not reporting. You know, it's a little odd here. I do think this swarm is a little bit more intense than what they're leading on, but again, we won't know until they fix some of the graphs up here. The amplitudes need to be, the sensitivity needs to be adjusted here. It needs to look like, I'll show you a prime example, and I know this year very well because I remember it stirring up quite a bit. I don't want it to look like this now, otherwise is that the right year, 2008? Oh no, we needed to go 2009. It began at the end of 2008. I should know this. Go back to December. That should do it. There we go. When Yellowstone was having a decent earthquake swarm. But at the time, when the readings here are properly tuned, you can see every single earthquake that occurs out there. And back then, they were only reporting a handful of these as well when that earthquake swarm stirred up. So the importance here is that, the sensitivity is squashed, and I want to know why. I want to know why it's so darn low. And it doesn't have to be. If you want to see earthquake activity in the area, why would you squash it? And it just looks suspicious now because they're showing earthquake activity, but it's not matching the time frame with go back here to right now. It's just not matching the time frame as what they're showing up here. And this is current. This is not the USGS model where it's like 6 days, 7 days behind. This is current with the current UTC time. But none of these matched up with the earthquakes that they're showing. And if so, it would be that little bitty blip. But they're skipping out on these other ones, and there's no telling how many other ones are happening that are not being picked up. So that's why I'm a little bit irritated, I guess, because they're not the stuff's not working right. I've been looking at the stuff for many years here, the graphs, and I know how to read them, and I know when they squash the data like that it's not good. And I need to know why they did that. 1.6 there down south off the Elsinore Fault, it looks like. Fairly active down here in the last couple days. It is starting to light up, as you can see in the last few minutes since I've been yakking out here on the update. Had 2 more earthquakes come in. So we are getting, some amplification of pressure right up against the southern end, the extreme southern end of the San Andreas Fault, which hasn't had a rupture in over 300 years. The last one was up north here, but that did not... the southern end did not rupture completely. It just started getting hiccups. So more than likely when this section does go, which it's overdue now, will take the extreme southern end with it. It may even start down here and work its way up north. Good possibility, since this has so much pressure built up on it. It did not release during the last earthquake sequence there on the southern branch of the San Andreas Fault. Oil fields of Texas still making that money out there, I guess. Lots of liquid gold underneath the ground. And lots of earthquakes. 33 of them today. Last 30 days got 680, which is a fairly low amount. I know, right? 680 in a month. That's a lot of earthquake activity. But we've seen times in the past here where this is double or triple that number. Right now it's a little on the low side. Kansas, some earthquake activity from yesterday and today. They've been getting a little bit of movement up here in the last week and technically in the last few months. Some 2s and 3s. Not for sure if there's any oil pumping operations out there, but it's outside the Smoky Hills area. Everyone thinks Kansas is completely flat. I can verify that that is not the case. Kansas is a beautiful state. Definitely not just completely flat. Let's see, down here in Alabama, 2.3 out there early this morning. Talladega, what's underneath this area? I don't see any pumping operations here. Looks like it's underneath this person's house. So maybe they're digging a tunnel. Who knows? But a little bit of earthquake activity out there. Occasionally we'll see some movement in Alabama and portions of the south. It doesn't happen all that often, but they are just outside the zone there of the Birmingham region, where historically they've seen some large earthquake activity. Not recently, but historically. It's been a while. Check out this super deep earthquake that just came in here within the last hour. 5.4, 324 miles deep into that subduction zone there called the Tonga Trench. That is a major area of accumulated slip in a short amount of time period. We've seen actually quite a bit here of deep earthquake activity in this region in the last week. The majority of these that are happening are super deep. That should definitely continue the strain out west, out here across this area. Papua New Guinea area. Solomon Islands region, Vanuatu is quiet right now. So we got all this deeper activity happening back here, skipping over this region, jumping up into the around the Banda Sea area, north and westward, with earthquake activity, but it's lacking in this region, so we do have to watch that. There's got to be pressure building up out here along the plate boundary. Philippines area still seeing some movement. One earthquake off the coast there of Taiwan, a 4.6. For the most part, though, Japan pretty quiet up until the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench, where there's a number 4 still occurring. Alaska, of course, had that 5-pointer yesterday. Looks like there's some more quake activity within that region, where the 5-pointer struck just yesterday down here. Got 3 more earthquakes, 2 and a couple 3s out there. Nothing big going on out here for now, but it's brewing, I think. I think we're definitely brewing. And today's one of those days here. I always talk about numbers and significant events, like the Boxing Day earthquake, the Easter earthquake. And there's been a number of large events that happen around holidays or celebrated dates, worldwide. And Halloween, right? Have we ever had a Halloween earthquake? The big one on Halloween 2025. Does that sound about right? Who knows? All I know is, important dates like this, when numbers come into sequence, or, like 10/31/2025, it just has that ring to it where I could see a big earthquake happening out here. Not forecasting it. I don't do that. But definitely could happen. You just never know. A lot going on out there in the world. Nothing surprises me these days. All right, South America area. There's a 3.3 coming in now across the southern end of the Middle America Trench down here. Pretty quiet, though, when it comes to the USGS model. I think that earthquake's occurring just off the coast of Nicaragua. Looks like it's around that area. So we'll just kind of keep an eye on things. Southern California definitely starting to move out there with some smaller earthquake activity, and of course that 2.9 up along the Diablo Range area just off the San Andreas Fault. So the movement is currently taking place, and of course when things start moving, bad things can happen along locked areas. Space weather activity, we do have a number of coronal holes that are on the Earth-facing side. We got 93 up here. I don't know what that's doing. It looks like it's trying to form. So we'll have to watch that. That's a fairly massive one. 91, the source of the high-speed solar wind stream from last night, stirring up some aurora activity, is much further out here across the western limb now. We do have 94, which is center disk. That will be facing the Earth here directly in a number of days. Now remember, this is behind about a day or so, day and a half. This is UTC time. So this is probably a little bit closer around this area. But that will be facing us. Here's one of the latest images. Yeah, this is fairly current, I think. Let's see here. What's the UTC time? Yeah, it's 1852, so that would be just about right here. A couple minutes behind. But yeah, we got this area, coronal hole. That will be facing the planet here pretty soon. Aurora activity was stirring up a little bit last night, but it didn't look like it busted open as far as seeing any major aurora shows. Maybe up in the typical zones. The high-speed solar wind stream was way up above 750. It's dropped down now to 567. Density is down, so it looks like that's going to drop off. Flaring activity, a little bit of C-flare activity stirring up on the sun today. Notice that. Actually, we've gone up here in the C-flare category consistently, and I believe that's got to do with the sunspot back over here. We're just starting to see some of the magnetic lines there from that sunspot, and that's picking up some C-flare activity. Once that gets into view, I think we'll start to see a little bit of uptick in space weather almost looks like my pumpkin there. I replaced the solar UV image of the sun with a pumpkin, kind of a creepy pumpkin face, and it's kind of neat looking. You know, it's Halloween. I don't mess with the stream all that often. I like to keep it, neutral, but popping up a scary, spooky looking Halloween pumpkin on today, I think nothing wrong with that. Even Solar Ham's doing that. I do like that. I can definitely appreciate that. All right, where was I? Oh yeah, far side. So that area of interest there that's kind of showing some sea flare activity is coming off 4246. Here's the eastern limb. It's really close to cresting around. It's got a lot of coverage area out there. So if you look, pretty decent cluster of sunspots. A lot more. I'm guessing these are going to be more complex than what we've been dealing with here in the last week, which is just B flare category. Just not good. Pretty low grade sunspots here recently, but coming up here in the days ahead, I think that will bump up. This one here is very close to the eastern limb again, which we'll see probably by tomorrow. I mean, we're getting some glimpses of it right now. Aurora activity, should it continue or elevate, we got a chance for a G1 class storm later tonight, but I think that's going to mellow out. Quick glance here at the next close approach asteroids to the planet shows us that this one's coming in today, it looks like. 528,000 miles, not that big, 25 foot. Aside from that, millions of miles away for the remainder of these next 5 asteroids. There's probably, all of these actually look like they're fairly newly discovered. See, 2025. Pretty crazy. For weather outlook tonight, let's take a look. We got a lot of clear skies. Maybe not clear skies, but there's no storminess going on as far as any major severe weather. It does look like the majority of the country will have clear sky or decent weather tonight for trick-or-treating. Some colder temperatures up north, but I don't see any really socked in areas aside from Seattle, and that's almost always like that in portions of the Northeast. But look at that. Lots of openness out there in the forecast. As we move on to early next week, we got another storm system set to impact the Northern California area, Southern Oregon. I'd like to see that a little bit more south. We still will get some rain here in Northern California, but the brunt of that looks like it's slamming around Fort Bragg in the Crescent City area, Eureka. I need that to point south a little bit so I can get some rain. Sharing is caring. Let's get that rain down here. And after that, we'll have to see what happens. I do want to double check the GFS or the ECM WF model, see what that looks like. See, now that one's showing a little bit more of a setup here for rain down south, even south of the Bay Area, San Francisco southward, getting in on some moisture. That's perfect setup with some heavy accumulated rainfall rates out there. Oh yeah, I'd be like right in the red here. Bring it to me, please. So I'm hopeful the ECM WF model holds up. If that's the case, then we got a decent storm coming up here for us. A little light on the accumulated precipitation run, but I think we'll get more than that if that holds true to the that ECM WF model on the other map I just showed you guys. Even so, this would still put us at close to an inch or more across the Sacramento Valley. Always higher along the Coast Range. Maybe I need to move along the Coast Range over there, but then that puts me right at the southern end of the Cascadia. I'm already going to feel it over here in Sacramento, but if I move over there, well, yeah, that's going to be not good. All right, let's see what else we got here. Seismograph stations all look calm, clear. Not a whole lot going on there for now. Just see, there's another earthquake in Yellowstone. I haven't really been watching that today, but I need to keep this up. See that well-defined earthquake on Yellowstone? Let's see if they're reporting that quake. Nope. See, I'm wondering how many quakes they're not reporting out here. If you watch my videos enough, when I focus in on earthquake swarms at Yellowstone, they're only accounting for a fraction of what is really happening out here. So we could easily be, today we could be up in the 40 or 50 range. And, looking at these graphs, man, yeah, if you were to look at this graph, check it out, guys. There's only about 6 or 7 earthquakes, but how many is really taking place here? Because the sensitivity is just, geez, it's frustrating. This needs to be turned up, people. I don't know who's in charge of it. Several people run it, several agencies, that is, run the data, but it's specific scientists in charge and whatnot that have a say-so on what gets turned up and what gets squashed. But ever since they did this a few months ago, it's been hard to look at activity that's occurring on Yellowstone and just taking their word for it. Well, I was using the USGS map here for a little bit, and their data was working perfectly. There was quite a few seismograph stations there that I could turn to see the earthquake activity. But, this is what it should look like. So you can see some of the earthquake activity and even some small ones. None of this will show up at all on those other ones. So, but this is offline. It's been offline here since the 24th. So hopefully they get it back up and running. It's a shame to see that just sit there and while a swarm's going on. All right, we'll catch you guys out here a little bit later on this evening, folks, for the Halloween update. Be a little bit later tonight. Of course, we'll do all the trick-or-treating and stuff early, but I'll be back on here tonight. Have a good one. We'll see you guys out here later.